Stay in your lane, little mascot. Nobody asked for you out here. Tyler's voice cut across the field as his hand shot out and grabbed the hem of Danielle's skirt, yanking her back mid-step hard enough to throw off her balance. Laughter rippled through the players nearby, helmets tucked under their arms, watching like it was part of practice. You're here for decoration, not because you've earned a place on this field, he added, leaning in, his grip tightening with the kind of confidence that came from never being challenged. One pom-pom slipped from her hand and dropped between them. His cleat came down on it instantly, grinding it into the turf like it meant nothing. Danielle didn't react. Her grip tightened around the pom-pom still in her hand. Her breathing slow, controlled. Her eyes lowered briefly, taking in his stance, his balance, how carelessly exposed he was, because Tyler had no idea he had just crossed a line he could never undo. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The sun blazed across Langford State University's football field, casting long shadows as the afternoon practice stretched on. Foundation Week, the biggest alumni event of the fall semester, had transformed the normally quiet campus into a buzzing hive of activity. Wealthy donors in pressed khakis mingled with faculty in the shaded VIP section, their conversations punctuated by the sharp whistle blasts from Coach Daniels's silver whistle. Danielle Brooks finished her routine with practiced precision, her dark ponytail swinging as she lowered her pom-poms. At 28, she stood out among the other cheerleaders, not just because of her smooth brown skin in a predominantly white squad, but because of the quiet focus in her eyes. She didn't bounce with nervous energy like the freshmen or gossip between sets. She just executed each move perfectly, then reset. From across the field, Tyler Grayson watched. The star quarterback leaned against the water station, his practice jersey clinging to his broad shoulders. His blonde hair caught the sunlight as he tilted his head toward Logan Price. "New girl thinks she's too good to smile," Tyler said, loud enough for the players nearby to hear. Logan snickered on cue. Ethan Cole, leaning against the bench with his helmet in hand, nodded toward Danielle. "That's the transfer. Heard she's like 30 or something." Sierra Hale, the senior cheer captain, had been watching Danielle since tryouts with narrowed eyes. Now she deliberately turned her back as Danielle approached the sidelines, creating a subtle wall with two other veteran cheerleaders. The message was clear. "You're not one of us." Danielle noticed, but didn't react. She'd been the outsider before. She tucked her pom-poms under her arm and headed for the tunnel that led to the locker rooms, skirting around a cluster of assistant coaches. Tyler pushed himself off the bench. "Watch this," he murmured to Logan and Ethan, a smirk spreading across his face. He jogged a few steps to intercept Danielle's path. "Hey there, new girl," Tyler called out, his voice carrying across the sideline. Several players turned to watch, sensing entertainment. "Awful serious for a cheerleader." Danielle didn't break stride. "Excuse me," she said quietly, trying to step around him. Tyler shifted, blocking her path. His eyes flicked to his teammates, making sure they were watching, before he reached out and hooked his fingers into the pleated fabric of her uniform skirt, giving it a tug. "Just trying to see if we can get a smile," he said, voice dripping with fake innocence. The moment suspended in time. Players froze mid-conversation. Sierra's eyes widened slightly. But what happened next wasn't in Tyler's script. Danielle moved with sudden, fluid precision. Her hand clamped around his wrist, her body pivoting as she stepped to the side. In one smooth motion, she trapped his arm, applied targeted pressure to the joint, and shifted her weight. Tyler found himself halfway to his knees before he even registered what was happening. There was no wasted movement, no dramatic showmanship, just the controlled application of leverage that left the star quarterback suddenly vulnerable. His smile vanished, replaced by genuine shock as pain radiated through his wrist. The sideline fell silent. Danielle leaned in slightly, her voice low but steady. "Don't touch me again." She released his wrist and stepped back, her face betraying no emotion beyond calm certainty. Phones emerged from pockets. A few stunned whispers rippled through the gathered players. One of the freshman running backs let out a surprised, "Whoa!" Tyler's face flushed red as he straightened up. The grin he forced onto his face looked painful. "Just playing around," he announced loudly. "Girls got some moves, huh?" But his eyes told a different story. They burned with humiliation and something darker as he stared at Danielle. Coach Daniels's whistle cut through the tension. "Back to drills! I don't see anyone running," he barked, deliberately ignoring the incident. "First string, I want that option. Play again." Players scattered, some throwing glances back at Danielle, others whispering to each other. Sierra stood frozen, her eyes darting between Tyler and Danielle with new calculation. Danielle adjusted her uniform and continued walking, her breathing calm and measured. Her face revealed nothing, but internally she was counting her steps, focusing on the rhythm of her heartbeat, techniques she'd learned years ago to stay centered during fights. Behind her, Tyler rose to his full height. "You're dead," he whispered, too quietly for anyone but Logan and Ethan to hear. "You have no idea who you're messing with." He rolled his wrist, feeling the lingering ache where her fingers had pressed into his joints. His father's face flashed in his mind. The disappointment, the lectures about weakness. "She just made herself a target," Tyler muttered, watching Danielle's retreating back as she walked toward the cheer locker room. Danielle pushed open the locker room door, her fingers still tight around her pom-poms. Her shoulder muscles twitched with leftover adrenaline, but her face remained calm. The familiar smells of deodorant spray and hair products filled the humid air. The conversation inside died instantly. Sierra Hale stood with her back to a row of lockers, flanked by Ava Lynn and Brooke Mercer. All three heads turned toward Danielle. Their whispers evaporated like water on hot pavement. "Hey," Danielle said, moving toward her locker. No one answered. Ava's eyes dropped to the floor, while Brooke pretended to dig through her gym bag. Only Sierra kept staring, arms crossed over her chest, lips pressed into a tight line. Danielle opened her locker and placed her pom-poms inside. The silence felt heavy, unnatural. "So," Sierra finally said, her voice sharp in the quiet room, "that was quite a scene out there." Danielle turned slowly. "I wouldn't call it that." "No." Sierra pushed off from the lockers, taking a step forward. "What would you call it then?" "Because from where I was standing, you made us all look bad." "He grabbed me," Danielle said simply. Sierra laughed, the sound hollow and mean. "It's Foundation Week, biggest fundraising time of the year, donors everywhere. And you decide to attack our quarterback?" "Attack?" Danielle's eyebrows rose slightly. "He put his hands on me." "It was a joke," Brooke piped up, still not meeting Danielle's eyes. "Tyler's always joking around. I don't care who he is. Nobody touches me without permission." Sierra stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Look, I don't know where you came from or how things worked there, but here, we're a team. That means we support the guys, not embarrass them in front of everyone." Danielle held her gaze. "Supporting the team doesn't mean letting someone disrespect me. You've been here, what, 3 weeks?" Sierra's voice dripped with fake sweetness. "Maybe try fitting in before you make enemies with the people who matter." She glanced meaningfully at Ava and Brooke, who shifted uncomfortably. Across the hall in the football locker room, Tyler yanked off his practice jersey and threw it into his locker with unnecessary force. Logan and Ethan flanked him like bodyguards. "Dude, what was that?" Logan asked, eyes wide. Tyler forced a laugh. "Nothing. Girl got lucky, caught me off balance." She dropped you, Ethan said, his voice low but needling. She did not drop me, Tyler snapped, then quickly reset his face into an easy smile. I let her think she had me. It's called being a gentleman. A few players nearby exchanged glances, but said nothing. So what are you gonna do? Logan pressed, leaning closer. You can't just let that slide. Tyler's smile tightened. Do I look worried? Trust me, she just made the biggest mistake of her life. Ethan scrolled through his phone. Already getting hits online. I posted that clip from practice. What clip? Tyler asked sharply. Ethan turned his phone around. The video showed Danielle's hand on Tyler's wrist, him bending slightly. But with no sound, and from an angle that missed his initial grab, it looked like she had attacked him unprovoked. Tyler's face relaxed into a genuine smile. Perfect. By late afternoon, the edited clip had spread across campus social media. Each share added a new detail. The angry new cheerleader, the unprovoked aggression, Tyler's supposed good humor about the whole thing. At the journalism building, Noah Bennett frowned at his computer screen. The campus newspaper editor watched the clip for the third time, noting the strange camera angle, the missing beginning of the interaction. Something felt off. What are you looking at? His assistant asked, peering over his shoulder. Not sure yet, Noah replied. But I think we're missing part of the story. As evening approached, string lights illuminated the Foundation Week mixer outside the student center. Music pumped through speakers while students and alumni mingled on the lawn. Danielle stood near a refreshment table, cup in hand, speaking with a professor when she felt, rather than saw, someone approach from behind. There she is, Tyler's voice came, loud enough for nearby people to hear. Our newest star. She turned slowly to face him, her expression neutral. He was surrounded by teammates, all watching with anticipation. Tyler, she acknowledged, with a slight nod. Great having you on the squad, he said, smiling broadly for the crowd while stepping closer into her space. His voice dropped to a near whisper. People who embarrass me don't last long here. And nobody would believe you anyway. Is that a threat? Danielle asked quietly. It's Langford State. Tyler's smile never wavered. My family name is on 3 buildings. I'm just helping you understand how things work. I understand perfectly, she replied, holding his gaze. His smile faltered slightly at her lack of fear. Enjoy the party, he said louder, for others to hear. While you can. Darkness had settled over the campus when Danielle finally returned to her dorm building. As she approached her door, she spotted something on the floor ahead. Her duffel bag lay in the hallway, contents partially spilled out. Next to it were her pom-poms, crushed and dirty, with distinct muddy cleat prints stamped across the white and gold streamers. Danielle stared at the scene, her face betraying nothing, as she took a slow, deep breath. Danielle knelt in the hallway, her face calm despite the knot forming in her stomach. She reached for her crushed pom-poms, lifting one to examine the muddy cleat print stamped across the gold and white streamers. The damage was deliberate, meant to send a message. 2 giggling students walked past, their conversation dropping to whispers as they noticed her. They quickened their pace, eyes averted, pretending not to see the mess or her kneeling figure. The hallway fell uncomfortably silent, except for their retreating footsteps. Do you need help with that? Danielle looked up to see Mia Torres, the floor's resident assistant, hovering at the corner of the hallway. Despite her official position, Mia's eyes darted nervously toward the exit, as if calculating her escape route. I'm fine, Danielle said, gathering her scattered uniform items methodically. Not the first mess I've cleaned up. Mia took a half-step forward, then stopped. I should report this, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Should you? Danielle asked, without looking up. I mean, I want to, but… Mia trailed off, shifting her weight from one foot to another. Danielle shoved the last of her belongings into the duffel bag and stood, facing Mia directly. "But what?" "Nothing," Mia said quickly. "Let me know if you need anything." Danielle watched her hurry away, then slung her bag over her shoulder and headed for the elevator. She pressed the button for the ground floor, her mind already working through next steps. The resident director's office was mostly dark when she arrived, but a light still shone from the back room. A sleepy-looking student worker glanced up from his textbook. "Can I help you?" "I need to see the security footage from the third floor, East Wing," Danielle said. "Someone vandalized my property." The student worker's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Oh, that section's cameras are down for maintenance. Started this morning." "Convenient," Danielle said flatly. "You can file a report," he offered, sliding a form across the counter without meeting her eyes. "When will the cameras be working again?" "Hard to say. Technical issues." Danielle took the form, but didn't move. "This happen often? Cameras going down when they might catch something important?" The student worker glanced toward his supervisor's door, then lowered his voice. "Look, I just work here, but yeah, especially near certain people's rooms." As Danielle turned to leave, she spotted Mia waiting by the exit, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "It won't help," Mia said quietly, as they stepped outside into the cool night air. "The report, I mean. Because the cameras are broken? Because it'll disappear." Mia looked around nervously. "Last year, my roommate filed 3 complaints against a football player who kept showing up drunk at our door. Each one vanished from the system. Then the dean suggested she might lose her scholarship if she kept making unfounded accusations." Danielle's jaw tightened. "So everyone just accepts this? What choice do we have? Tyler's family donated the new business building. His uncle sits on the board. The Graysons basically own half this place." "Nobody owns me," Danielle said. Back in her room, Danielle locked the door and pulled out her phone. Her Aunt Regina answered on the 3rd ring. "It's late, baby. Everything okay?" "Not exactly." Danielle explained what had happened, from the field incident to her ruined pom-poms. Regina was quiet for a moment. "You controlled yourself when he grabbed you. That's good." "I wanted to break his wrist," Danielle admitted. "But you didn't. That's restraint. That's strength." Regina's voice grew firmer. "But don't confuse restraint with silence. Your mother never taught you to be silent." "I know." Danielle's thoughts drifted to her mother, gone 8 years now, who'd raised her to stand her ground. "These boys think they're untouchable," Regina continued. "But everybody's touchable if you find the right pressure point." After hanging up, Danielle opened her social media. The video clip of her confrontation with Tyler had hundreds of shares. She watched it again, seeing how perfectly it had been cut. Starting with her hand on Tyler's wrist, erasing his grab that started it all. Across campus, in a sprawling house with Greek columns and expensive furniture, Tyler raised a bottle of premium vodka. "To Danielle Brooks," he announced with a smirk, "who's about to learn a lesson." Logan and Ethan laughed as they clinked their glasses against his. "Did you see how Coach just looked the other way?" Ethan said, refilling his glass. "Man didn't even blink." "Dad's written enough checks that nobody blinks," Tyler replied, stretching out on a leather couch. "By next week, she'll either be gone or broken. Her choice." In the campus newspaper office, Noah Bennett rubbed his tired eyes but continued scrolling through social media. He'd created a folder, saving screenshots of posts about the incident, noting timestamps and deleted comments. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. The selective editing, the coordinated narrative. "What are you really looking at?" he muttered to himself as he studied the freeze frame of Danielle's face in the video. Danielle lay in bed with ice wrapped in a towel around her hand. The joint lock she'd applied to Tyler had strained her own wrist slightly, a small price for the message she'd sent. She knew tomorrow would be worse. The crushed pom-poms were just the opening move in whatever game Tyler and his friends had planned. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. An unknown number. The message contained just 8 words. Quit the squad or get hurt for real. The gym echoed with the squeak of sneakers and forced enthusiasm as Danielle pushed through the heavy double doors. Sleep had come in broken fragments, each disturbed by the glowing message on her phone. Quit the squad or get hurt for real. She'd finally drifted off around 3 a.m., giving her barely 4 hours of rest. Sierra stood in the center of the practice mat, clipboard against her chest, watching Danielle's entrance with narrowed eyes. "Nice of you to join us, Brooks," Sierra called out, though Danielle was 5 minutes early. "We've already warmed up." The other cheerleaders were stretching in a circle, their conversations dropping to whispers as Danielle set down her bag. Ava Lynn looked away quickly, suddenly fascinated by her shoelaces. Brooke Mercer snickered into her water bottle. "Sorry," Danielle said, even though she wasn't late. She dropped into a stretch, muscles still tight from yesterday. "We're running the pyramid sequence," Sierra announced. "Danielle, you're on the second tier, center support." Danielle felt her stomach tighten. Center support was one of the hardest positions, holding most of the weight while balancing other cheerleaders above. It was usually assigned to the most experienced squad members, not newcomers. "Isn't that Madison's position?" Danielle asked, nodding toward a senior cheerleader. "It was," Sierra smiled tightly. "Today it's yours. Problem?" "No problem," Danielle replied, meeting Sierra's stare. The routine started badly and got worse. The girls who should have helped stabilize Danielle's position stepped back a fraction too far, leaving her overextended. When the pyramid wobbled, Sierra blew her whistle sharply. "Brooks, you're throwing off the balance. Again!" After the third collapse, Danielle's shoulders burned with effort. As they reset, she heard the gym doors bang open. Tyler Grayson strolled in with Logan and Ethan flanking him like bodyguards. They wore practice jerseys but carried no equipment. "Don't mind us, ladies," Tyler called, his voice bouncing off the walls. "Coach said we could use the weight area." He settled onto a bench facing the cheerleaders, making no move toward the weights. "Keep going," Sierra ordered, her voice suddenly honeyed with Tyler's arrival. From the top, Danielle felt Tyler's eyes on her, not just watching but studying, assessing, looking for weakness. When she glanced over, he didn't look away. He smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Bet she falls this time," Ethan stage whispered. $20, says she does," Logan agreed loudly. Sierra assigned Danielle to increasingly difficult positions. Base for stunts without spotters. Extended lifts with partners who seemed to drop their grip at critical moments. Each time Danielle recovered, Sierra found a new way to set her up to fail. "Water break," Sierra finally announced. 5 minutes. Danielle's shirt was soaked with sweat as she walked to her bag. Her wrist throbbed where she'd caught her weight after Brooke accidentally shifted during a lift. "Excuse me? Danielle Brooks?" A guy with dark-rimmed glasses and a campus press badge stood nearby, notebook in hand. He looked nervous but determined. "I'm Noah Bennett, editor at the Langford Chronicle." He kept his voice low. "There's video going around about yesterday. It seems selectively edited." "No comment," Danielle said automatically, uncapping her water bottle. "That's fine." Noah nodded. "I just wanted to ask directly instead of running with assumptions. Journalism 101, right?" Danielle studied him. "Thanks for that, at least. If you ever want to talk, on or off record." He slid a business card onto the bench beside her. Across the gym, Tyler whispered something to Logan, both watching the interaction. Sierra blew her whistle again, sharper this time. "Break's over." Later that morning, Danielle sat in her American literature class, feeling eyes on her back. Whispers followed her through the hallways between classes. In economics, Professor Harmon paused during the lecture to smile at Tyler in the back row. "It's refreshing to see student-athletes who maintain composure under pressure," Harmon said pointedly. "Leadership qualities that will serve them well beyond college." Tyler's smug smile made Danielle's stomach turn. She understood now. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. The edited video, the professor's comments, the sudden cold shoulders. Someone with influence was making calls. That afternoon, the squad gathered for final announcements before dismissal. Sierra scanned her clipboard with theatrical importance. "Foundation Week halftime show assignments," she announced. "For the Shooting Star finale, we'll need our strongest flyer." Her eyes fixed on Danielle with cold calculation. "Danielle will take the center position." Gasps rippled through the squad. The Shooting Star was their most dangerous stunt. A flyer launched 15 feet up, twisting before being caught by bases below. It required perfect timing, complete trust, and weeks of practice. Mistakes meant broken bones. "It's an honor," Sierra added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You should be thrilled." Danielle met Sierra's gaze steadily, understanding exactly what this was. Not an honor, but a trap, set with careful precision by people who expected her to either crash or run away. "Thank you for the opportunity," Danielle replied, her voice calm despite the fury building in her chest. "I won't let the team down." Behind Sierra, Tyler leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the exchange with obvious satisfaction. The message couldn't be clearer if they'd written it in blood. They were coming for her, one way or another. The stadium lights blazed against the darkening afternoon sky as Foundation Week's main event kicked into high gear. Langford State University's football field heaved with energy, packed bleachers, screaming fans, and alumni whose checkbooks determined the school's future. Cheerleaders prepared along the sidelines while the team dominated the first half. Danielle sat on a metal bench, carefully wrapping athletic tape around her ankle. The white strips crossed over each other in practiced patterns, providing support she knew she'd need. Her hands moved methodically, but her eyes tracked the other cheerleaders' positions. Something felt wrong about today's formation. "Nervous about your big moment?" Sierra's voice cut through Danielle's concentration. "Just being thorough," Danielle replied, keeping her voice neutral. She finished taping and stood, testing her weight. The bases for the Shooting Star, Brooke, Ava, and two freshmen named Tara and Jen, kept glancing at Sierra instead of reviewing positions with Danielle. Normal procedure dictated multiple practice runs before a stunt this complex, but Sierra had scheduled none. "Positions in 5, Sierra called, scrolling through her phone as if bored. Across the field, Tyler threw another touchdown. The crowd erupted, and he ripped off his helmet, Golden Boy's smile flashing for the cameras. His eyes found Danielle briefly before he jogged back to the huddle. "He's going to break records today," one of the freshman cheerleaders whispered. "My brother says NFL scouts are watching." The halftime buzzer blared. Langford was up by 17 points. Players jogged toward the locker rooms while the cheer squad took center field. "Remember," Sierra hissed as they moved into formation, "smile through everything." The band struck up the school fight song. Cheerleaders formed 3 pyramids, with Danielle positioned as top flyer in the center formation. Her bases locked arms below her, creating the platform from which she would launch. Danielle felt her heart hammering as they lifted her for the initial pose. From 15 feet up, she glimpsed the entire stadium. Alumni section, booster seats, coaches' boxes. She spotted Dean Holloway entertaining donors in a private section. Coach Daniels stood near the tunnel, arms folded. The music shifted to a dramatic drum sequence. Her cue. She steadied her breath. Below, her bases prepared for the launch. the complex maneuver they'd supposedly perfected in practice. As Danielle began the count in her head, she caught sight of Tyler. He hadn't gone to the locker room with the others. Instead, he lingered at the sideline, watching intently, a half-smile playing across his face. 1. The bases tightened their grip. 2. She felt their muscles tense beneath her. 3. The launch began. But something was wrong. Sierra's count came early. The right base shifted slightly outward instead of up. The hands supporting Danielle's left foot slipped, too smooth to be accidental. The foundation collapsed before she'd fully launched. For a suspended moment, Danielle was airborne with nothing below her. Training kicked in. Tuck, protect the head, try to roll. But there wasn't enough time or height. She crashed onto the field, shoulder first, then hip. Pain exploded through her body, bright and vicious. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. The world went silent for 3 terrifying seconds before sound rushed back, gasps from the crowd, the band faltering, voices shouting for help. Through watering eyes, Danielle saw Sierra's face. Not shock, not horror. Just cold calculation, quickly masked by manufactured concern. "Oh my God," Sierra's voice carried theatrically. "She lost her balance." Danielle tried to speak, to contradict the lie, but could only manage shallow gasps. As she struggled to sit up, she caught Tyler's expression, open satisfaction before he turned away, disappearing into the tunnel. Medical staff rushed onto the field. A trainer gently pressed her back down. "Don't move yet. Let's check that shoulder." Footsteps approached rapidly. Coach Daniels appeared beside the trainer, Dean Holloway close behind. "Just a slip, right?" Coach Daniels said loudly. "These things happen in cheerleading." "Routine mishap," Dean Holloway agreed before Danielle could even speak. "No need for alarm." The trainer frowned slightly but didn't contradict them. "We need to get her to the clinic for evaluation," the trainer said, motioning for the stretcher. "Sierra?" Dean Holloway called. "What happened?" Sierra stepped forward, wide-eyed innocence perfectly constructed. "She just lost her balance at the top. Maybe she got dizzy? She seemed off during warm-ups." Danielle tried to protest through the pain, but the words caught in her throat as they lifted her onto the stretcher. "The show must go on," Coach Daniels announced, clapping his hands. "Clear the field. Second half starts in 8 minutes." As they carried her off, the crowd's attention had already shifted back to the returning football players. The band resumed playing as if nothing had happened. Only a few concerned faces watched her leave. The campus clinic was quiet compared to the roaring stadium. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as they transferred Danielle to an exam table. Through the thin wall of the adjacent office, she heard Dean Holloway's smooth voice. "Just keep the report simple. Accidental fall during routine performance. No need for extensive documentation." A quieter voice responded, though Danielle couldn't make out the words. "The university appreciates your discretion," Dean Holloway continued. "Foundation Week is critical for donor relations." Danielle closed her eyes, pain radiating through her body, not just from the fall, but from the realization that they were already erasing what had really happened. The fluorescent lights of the campus clinic hummed coldly as Danielle sat on the exam table. Her arm hung in a blue cloth sling, her shoulder visibly swollen beneath her team t-shirt. Each breath sent little pulses of pain radiating through her upper body. Nurse Patel, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes behind practical glasses, flipped through the chart with a frown deepening on her face. "This doesn't match what I'm seeing," she said quietly, glancing up at Danielle. "What do you mean?" Danielle asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The official report says you have a minor muscle strain." Nurse Patel gestured toward the dark bruising spreading across Danielle's shoulder. "But this bruising pattern suggests a more severe injury, possibly a partial tear." Danielle wasn't surprised. They're covering it up. I didn't say that, Nurse Patel replied quickly, though her eyes said otherwise. She lowered her voice. You'll need proper rest, ice, compression, and elevation. At least 3 weeks before any strenuous activity. 3 weeks, Danielle said. That's the rest of Foundation Week and beyond. If you push it too soon, you risk permanent damage. I'm noting my recommendations here. She scribbled on a separate pad. Keep this copy for yourself. The door swung open before Danielle could respond. Dean Holloway strode in, his tailored blazer still perfect despite the long day. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Brooks, how are we feeling? Just a little tumble, I hear. Nurse Patel stiffened. I was just explaining her care instructions. Excellent. Excellent, Dean Holloway said, dismissing the nurse with a nod. I'll take a moment with our student, if you don't mind. When the door closed, his smile vanished. Ms. Brooks, I understand you've had a rough start here at Langford. Danielle met his gaze directly. I was dropped deliberately. Dean Holloway's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. One I hope you won't be making publicly during Foundation Week. It's the truth. Truth is subjective, Ms. Brooks. He placed his hands in his pockets, rocking slightly on his heels. What I see is an older transfer student struggling to fit in with a well-established team. Perhaps the routines here are more challenging than you expected. The insult was thinly veiled. Danielle kept her voice steady. I've been performing since I was 15. I know when I'm dropped. Listen carefully. His voice dropped lower. You're new here. You don't understand how things work. Foundation Week brings in millions in alumni donations that fund scholarships, including yours. The threat hung in the air between them. The medical report says muscle strain, he continued. That's what happened. Unless you want to find yourself suddenly unable to meet the academic requirements for your scholarship. Danielle felt a cold anger settling in her chest, familiar and clarifying. Are you threatening me? I'm advising you. His smile returned, empty and practiced. Rest up. Take some time. And think very carefully about the story you want to tell. After he left, Danielle sat motionless for several minutes, digesting what had just happened. The clinic released her with minimal painkillers and the official paperwork that downplayed her injury. The walk back to her dorm seemed endless. Each step sent jolts of pain through her shoulder. The campus was oddly quiet. Most students still at the game or post-game celebrations. She could hear distant cheering. Langford had probably won. Inside her dorm room, Danielle confronted her first real challenge. Simple tasks became monumental. Removing her shirt one-handed proved nearly impossible. Showering required propping her arm awkwardly while trying not to wet the sling. She couldn't reach to wash her hair properly. After 20 frustrating minutes, she emerged from the bathroom, exhausted and still not properly clean. She grabbed her phone, wincing as she reached across the bed. The screen lit up with notifications, dozens of them. Not messages of concern, but mockery. Anonymous accounts had shared edited clips of her fall with captions like, "When you try to show off, but gravity says no," and "Old lady can't hang with the real cheerleaders." Someone had even created a meme comparing her fall to cartoon characters getting knocked down. Tears of frustration pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. Crying would only make her shoulder hurt worse. A private message appeared from Noah. Heard what happened. I have witness accounts that don't match the official story. Would you be willing to talk? No recording, no quotes, without permission. Danielle stared at the message for a long moment before typing back one-handed. Tomorrow. Library. 10 a.m. She set down her phone and struggled to get comfortable on her bed. Sleep seemed impossible with pain pulsing through her body. Just as she found a bearable position, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from Sierra. Coach wants full squad meeting tomorrow. Mandatory, 9 a.m. The timing wasn't accidental. They were making sure she couldn't meet Noah. Exhausted and aching, Danielle finally drifted into uneasy sleep around midnight. She woke just after 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. When she returned, something caught her eye. A paper had been slipped under her door. She picked it up, turned it over, and felt her stomach drop. In block letters, it read, "You should have stayed on the ground." When she tried her doorknob, her fingers slid off. Someone had smeared it with petroleum jelly. Danielle stood in the dark, her heart pounding. Then, with deliberate calm, she found her phone and took a picture of the note. She photographed the doorknob. She pulled out Nurse Patel's handwritten assessment and photographed it next to the official report. Finally, she awkwardly positioned her phone to capture the bruising pattern on her shoulder and back. "Evidence," she whispered to herself. "Everything from now on is evidence." The dawn broke with pale light through Danielle's window. She hadn't slept more than 3 fitful hours. Her shoulder throbbed beneath the sling, each pulse a reminder of yesterday's orchestrated accident. Campus cafe chairs scraped against tile floors as early risers grabbed coffee before class. Danielle chose a corner table, keeping her back to the wall, and her evidence folder hidden under the table. The place was nearly empty, exactly what she needed. Noah Bennett arrived 5 minutes early, his laptop tucked under one arm, and dark circles beneath his eyes suggesting he'd been up most of the night. He nodded at her sling. "How bad is it?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her. "Bad enough to hurt. Not bad enough to stop me," Danielle replied. Noah opened his laptop. "I've been tracking posts since yesterday's game. Look at this." He turned the screen to show her a collection of screenshots, arranged by timestamp. "These were posted before halftime even started," he said, pointing to messages from anonymous accounts. Danielle leaned forward, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. The posts made her stomach clench. "Can't wait to see the new girl take a hard fall today. Betting she won't last through halftime. Someone's about to learn her place." All posted before her fall. Before the pyramid had even formed. "They knew," she whispered. Noah nodded grimly. "Not just knew. They planned it. And they're already covering tracks." He clicked through more screenshots. "These posts? They're vanishing from the forums. Someone's deleting evidence. I've started keeping records too." Danielle slid her phone across the table, showing Noah the photos she'd taken last night. The threatening note, her medical records, the bruises. Noah's jaw tightened as he scrolled through. "This isn't just bullying. It's coordinated harassment." He lowered his voice. "The football program brings in millions. The Grayson family donated the new business building last year. Nobody wants to touch this." "I'm not nobody," Danielle said. The cafe was filling up. A group of students in Letterman jackets entered, scanning tables. Danielle quickly gathered her things. "I need to get to class. Text me later." She hurried across campus, the morning sun warming her face, but doing nothing for the chill that had settled in her chest. When she reached her American literature classroom, students were already filing in, conversations dropping to whispers as she entered. Her usual seat in the third row was empty, but not clean. Someone had wrapped the chair in athletic tape, the kind used for sports injuries. Red marker stains that looked like blood streaked across the desk surface. Professor Watkins glanced at the display, then quickly looked away, pretending not to see. He shuffled papers at the podium while students stared. Danielle stood still for 3 long seconds. Then she walked to a different seat, set down her bag, and opened her notebook as if nothing had happened. The 2-hour lecture crawled by. When class ended, Professor Watkins called out to other students, but avoided eye contact with Danielle. By afternoon, her shoulder felt like it was on fire. She popped a pain pill before heading to cheer practice, knowing she couldn't perform but required to attend. Sierra stood in the center of the gym, clipboard in hand. "Danielle, you'll observe today. But since you're here, you can help manage equipment. I have a doctor's note excusing me from lifting," Danielle said, holding up the paper. Sierra's smile was cold. "It's just pom-poms and water bottles. Unless you're too delicate for that too?" The other cheerleaders watched, uncomfortable, but silent. Ava looked away. Brooke studied her fingernails. "I can track routines and take notes," Danielle offered. Sierra's eyes narrowed. "So, you're just going to sit there while everyone else works? Typical. This is why we don't take transfers with attitude problems." Before Danielle could respond, the gym doors banged open. Tyler, Logan, and Ethan swaggered in, sweaty from football drills and radiating hostile energy. "Well, look who's still hanging around," Tyler called out, his voice echoing through the gym. "Thought you might have quit by now." Logan snickered. "Maybe she should try the senior citizens cheer squad." "Do they even let grandmas be cheerleaders?" Ethan added, drawing laughs from several squad members. Danielle kept her face neutral, focusing on writing notes about the routine forming in front of her. Tyler, irritated by her calm, moved closer. "You know what your problem is?" he said, leaning in so close she could smell his sweat. "You think you're special because you know how to throw a punch." Sierra called the squad to attention, but Tyler ignored her. "Nobody's going to believe anything you say," he continued, voice dropping lower. "A woman who fights like a man? They'll call you unstable, aggressive, dangerous." Danielle met his gaze steadily, but said nothing. Her silence seemed to infuriate him more than any comeback could have. "Say something," he demanded, his mask slipping. "I don't need to," she replied quietly. Practice dragged on with Tyler and his friends making loud comments from the sidelines. When Sierra finally dismissed the squad as dusk fell, Danielle's whole body ached from tension and pain. She walked slowly to the parking lot, fishing her keys from her bag. The day's last light cast long shadows between cars as she approached her old Honda. Danielle stopped mid-step. Both front tires lay flat against the asphalt, deep slashes visible in the rubber. From somewhere behind the gym, Tyler's distinctive laugh floated through the evening air. The parking lot lights cast long yellow cones between the cars. Danielle stood beside her Honda, the front end sagging on two ruined tires. The slash marks were clean, deliberate, not the random damage of accident or weather. Noah circled the vehicle, phone in hand, capturing photos from multiple angles. "Get the timestamp visible in the shots," Danielle said quietly. "And the stadium in the background." Noah nodded, adjusting his position. "I'm documenting everything. The cuts, the parking spot, the security camera position." He pointed upward toward a dome-shaped device mounted on a light pole. "Which probably doesn't work, or will mysteriously have no footage." A campus police cruiser rolled slowly into the lot 15 minutes after they'd called, parking at a distance as if approaching a minor nuisance rather than a crime scene. Officer Benton stepped out, a heavy-set man with thinning hair and the bored expression of someone counting years to retirement. "You reported vehicle damage?" he asked, not bothering with a notepad. "Vandalism," Danielle corrected, gesturing to the tires. "Someone slashed both front tires after threatening me earlier today." Officer Benton barely glanced at the damage. "Looks like student mischief to me. Happens during Foundation Week. Rivalries, pranks, that sort of thing." Noah's phone was still recording. "Student mischief? That's an interesting way to describe criminal property damage targeting a specific student. You writing this up for that paper of yours?" Benton's tone sharpened. "Because all I see is two flat tires in a college parking lot." "Two slashed tires," Danielle said firmly, "following a physical assault on the field. A deliberate drop during the halftime show that injured my shoulder, threatening notes left at my dorm room, and verbal intimidation by Tyler Grayson and his friends who were here minutes ago. Officer Benton's posture changed, becoming more guarded. That's quite a list of accusations against specific students without any proof. I have documentation for everything, Danielle replied. And witnesses. Well, file a formal complaint then, Benton said, already turning back toward his cruiser. Can't do much about flat tires except write a report. Which you haven't even started doing, Noah observed, camera still recording. 30 minutes later, with a nearly blank incident report listing unknown persons as suspects despite Danielle naming names, Officer Benton departed. A tow truck Danielle could barely afford would arrive within the hour. Dean Holloway's office next, she said, her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder and the deepening hole in her bank account. You sure you want to go tonight? Noah asked, concern evident in his voice. Every hour I wait is another hour they have to prepare a defense. The administration building stood like a fortress in the center of campus, windows still lit on the top floor where important offices overlooked the quad. The security guard recognized Danielle from the cheer squad and waved them through, another small confirmation that everyone knew who she was. Dean Holloway's waiting area buzzed with activity despite the late hour. Men in suits with donor badges moved freely through the inner office door. Assistant coaches carrying folders nodded to the receptionist and walked straight in. Meanwhile, Danielle and Noah sat on uncomfortable chairs, ignored for nearly 40 minutes. Interesting how Foundation Week means donors get priority, Noah murmured, making notes in his phone. When they were finally admitted, Dean Holloway stood behind his massive desk, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile practiced and empty. Ms. Brooks, I understand you've had some concerns, he began, gesturing toward chairs without actually looking at her sling. Danielle placed her folder on his desk. Not concerns, complaints, documented incidents of harassment, assault, and retaliation. Holloway's expression shifted to something resembling sympathy, though it didn't reach his eyes. College can be a challenging adjustment period, especially for non-traditional students returning to academia after time away. This isn't about adjustment, Danielle said firmly. Tyler Grayson grabbed me without consent. I was deliberately dropped during a cheer stunt. I've received threatening messages. My tires were slashed tonight. These are serious personality conflicts that... Not personality conflicts. Crimes. The dean's practiced smile tightened. Ms. Brooks, Langford State takes all student concerns seriously. But we must be careful about characterizing interpersonal difficulties as criminal matters without substantial evidence. As he spoke, Danielle noticed a filing cabinet against the wall labeled Student Conduct, with a large shred bin beside it. Papers spilled from the bin's top, forms with colored edges matching the complaint she'd just handed over. I have evidence, she replied. And witnesses. We'll review everything thoroughly, Holloway assured her, already sliding her folder to the side of his desk. Though during Foundation Week, our investigation timeline may be somewhat extended. Noah cleared his throat. For the record, what is the university's standard response time for investigating sexual harassment and assault complaints? The dean's eyes hardened. The campus newspaper might want to focus on more positive stories during our celebration week. They left 30 minutes later with nothing but vague assurances. One more stop, Noah said, leading her toward the basement offices of the student newspaper. The cramped space was empty, except for 2 junior reporters finishing layout work. Noah unlocked a filing cabinet and pulled out a folder. 2 years ago, Melissa Jacobs and Tricia Watson filed complaints against football players, he explained, showing her redacted copies. Melissa transferred suddenly mid-semester. Tricia lost her academic scholarship over conduct violations that appeared right after her complaint. They bury women who fight back, Danielle said quietly. They try to, Noah corrected. But they haven't dealt with someone like you before. At her dorm, shortly before midnight, Danielle had just finished securing her door with a makeshift lock brace when a soft knock startled her. She approached cautiously. "Who is it?" "It's Ava," came a whispered reply. Danielle cracked the door to find Ava Lynn standing in the hallway, glancing nervously in both directions. "Can I come in?" "Just for a minute?" Danielle let her inside, closing the door quickly. "I shouldn't be here," Ava said, voice barely audible. "But I heard about your tires and—" She took a shaky breath. "Sierra told some of us the fall was necessary." Those were her exact words. "Necessary!" She said you needed to learn your place. Ava perched on the edge of Danielle's desk chair like she might bolt at any second. Her fingers twisted nervously in her lap as she glanced at the phone recording between them. "I'm here," Noah's voice came through the speaker. "And I'm taking notes." Danielle leaned against her dresser, shoulder still aching. "Ava, I appreciate you coming. Whatever you can tell us helps. I shouldn't be doing this." Ava's voice trembled. "Sierra has connections. Her dad plays golf with the athletic director." "Take your time," Danielle said gently. "What exactly did you see before the halftime show?" Ava took a deep breath. "Sierra disappeared right before warm-ups. I went looking for her and saw her with Tyler near the tunnel entrance. They were arguing about something, but when they saw me, they stopped talking." "And then?" Noah prompted from the phone. 20 minutes later, Sierra changed all the stunt positions. She moved you to top of the pyramid and switched 3 bases." Ava looked directly at Danielle. "That never happens without days of practice. Never." "Did she say why?" Danielle asked. "She claimed it was to showcase our strongest flyer for the alumni." Ava's laugh was hollow. "But she put Brooke on your weak side." "Brooke's still learning proper hand positioning." Noah's voice cut in. "Can you confirm Sierra specifically ordered someone to drop Danielle?" Ava shook her head. "I didn't hear her say those exact words. But I've been on the squad 3 years, and I know what an accident looks like. That wasn't one." Danielle shifted her arm in the sling. "Why are the other girls staying quiet?" "Because we all saw what happened to Jess Martinez last year," Ava whispered. "She got injured during a fundraiser event and complained about safety violations. 2 weeks later, her housing assignment got lost in the system. She slept in her car until her parents could drive 8 hours to get her." "Jesus," Noah muttered. "And Monica Chen lost her scholarship after she reported a football player for stalking her. The athletic department claimed there were budget adjustments. She works 2 jobs now just to stay enrolled." Ava's eyes filled with tears. "We're all one complaint away from losing everything." Danielle saw it clearly now. The perfect trap. Women controlled by other women, while men like Tyler never had to get their hands dirty directly. "I need to go," Ava said suddenly, standing. "If Sierra finds out I came here—" "No one will know," Danielle promised. "But Ava, at some point, we all have to decide what we're willing to accept." After Ava left, Noah remained on the line. "I'm pulling the practice logs first thing tomorrow. If they change the lineup last minute, there should be documentation. And if there's not, then that's evidence too." Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the newspaper office as Noah spread printouts across the table. "The official lineup submitted to the athletic department shows you in the right base position," he said, pointing to a form. "But the coach's clipboard photos from practice show you at top position." "So Sierra changed it without filing the revision," Danielle said. "Exactly. And look at this." Noah handed her another paper. "Your medical report changed overnight. The first intake notes possible trauma from fall, but the official report says minor strain from overexertion." Danielle's jaw tightened. "Someone's sanitizing everything." "They're good at this," Noah admitted. "They've had practice." That afternoon, Danielle spotted Tyler outside the athletic building, laughing with Logan and Ethan. When he saw her watching, he whispered something that made the others laugh harder. Her phone was already recording in her pocket when she approached him. "We need to talk," she said. Tyler smirked. "Boys, give us a minute." When they stepped away, he leaned closer. "Brave coming around here with no witnesses." "There are plenty of witnesses," Danielle replied calmly. "That's the problem with thinking you're untouchable. You get sloppy." His smile vanished. "You don't know how this works, do you? My family's name is on the business school. My uncle chairs the board of trustees, and that gives you the right to assault women?" Tyler laughed, the sound razor-sharp. "Look around you. We built half this campus. No one's going to choose you over us. Dean Holloway's kid got into Harvard because my dad made a call. The athletic director's wife works at my mom's foundation. So you admit the system is rigged?" "It's not rigged," Tyler said, eyes gleaming with arrogance. "It's designed. People like me designed it. People like you just don't matter in it. You could scream from the rooftops, and no one who matters would hear you." "Someone will hear," Danielle said quietly. "They haven't yet." Tyler stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're just another scholarship case who'll be gone next semester. No one will remember your name. We'll see about that." The campus coffee shop was nearly empty when Danielle met Noah that evening. She slid her phone across the table. "I got him," she said simply. Noah listened to the recording twice, his expression brightening. "This is it. Him openly admitting his family manipulates the administration. Is it enough? It's a start." Noah looked up from the phone. "But we should be clear. If we publish this, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything they have." Danielle nodded slowly, thinking of Ava's fear, the cheerleaders sleeping in cars, the complaints that vanished into shredders. "I understand what we're facing," she said. "The question is, are you ready for this fight?" Noah closed his laptop with resolve. "I've been waiting 3 years for evidence this solid. The audio quality is perfect. We can publish it alongside documentation of the altered reports. Then let's do it." "You should know," Noah warned, "once this goes public, it won't just be Tyler coming after you. It'll be the whole system." Danielle touched her injured shoulder, remembering the moment she felt herself falling with no one willing to catch her. "They're already coming after me," she said. "The difference is, now I'm fighting back." Directly after dinner that same evening, Danielle and Noah sat in the dim newspaper office, listening again to Tyler's recorded arrogance, while rain tapped against the windows. The campus was mostly empty now, just a few students hurrying through the downpour with hoods pulled tight. Inside, the small desk lamp cast long shadows across stacks of printed drafts. "We need to be careful," Noah said, adjusting the volume. "No accusations we can't prove. Just the facts, the edited clip, your medical report, and his own words." Danielle nodded, her injured shoulder still aching. "Evidence, not emotion." "Exactly." Noah typed quickly, eyes fixed on his screen. "We don't claim the fall was deliberate, just that the reporting of it was manipulated. We don't need to speculate about motives." "The facts are damning enough," Danielle said. They worked past midnight, trimming anything that could be called opinion. Noah pulled up the official medical report, mysteriously downgraded from possible torn ligament to minor strain, and placed it side by side with photos of Danielle's actual bruising. They added the time-stamped social media posts celebrating her fall before it happened publicly. "Ready?" Noah asked, finger hovering over the publish button. Danielle took a deep breath. "Do it." The article went live at 6 a.m., just as students were waking up. By breakfast, Danielle's phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Students were sharing the story, adding comments like, "Finally someone said it," and "We all know what goes on here." 3 female athletes from other teams messaged her privately with similar stories of injuries being minimized and complaints disappearing. "It's working," Noah texted her between classes. "The administration can't ignore this now." For those bright morning hours, Danielle felt something she hadn't experienced since arriving on campus: being believed. Students nodded at her in hallways. A professor quietly said, "Brave peace," as she took her seat. She allowed herself a moment of hope, catching her reflection in a classroom window, straight-backed, chin high. Then the counterattack began. At 11:32 a.m., a video appeared on the athletic department's official social media. "Safety first. Why proper training matters." The clip showed Danielle at practice, but something was wrong. The footage jumped oddly, splicing together unrelated moments to make her movements look erratic and dangerous. Her careful spotting techniques appeared reckless. Her falls, controlled and technical, looked wild. "What the hell?" she whispered, watching herself become unrecognizable through selective editing. By noon, her university email pinged with an official notice. "Ms. Brooks, due to serious concerns regarding practice safety and interpersonal conduct, you are temporarily suspended from all squad activities pending review. Please report to Student Conduct Office by Friday. Dean Robert Holloway." She tried calling Noah, but he didn't answer. When she reached the newspaper office, she found him arguing with a university lawyer who was demanding a retraction. "The recording was obtained without consent," the lawyer insisted. "That's grounds for immediate removal." "One-party consent is legal in this state," Noah shot back, but his face was pale. Outside, students whispered as she passed. Their phones displayed the doctored practice video, not Noah's careful reporting. By afternoon, Sierra had given 3 separate interviews claiming Danielle had threatened her after practice and created a hostile environment for the squad. "She grabbed my wrist, just like she did to Tyler," Sierra told a campus reporter, her voice trembling with manufactured fear. "She said I'd regret crossing her." Brooke nodded beside her, eyes down. "I saw it too." The lies spread faster than the truth ever could. Danielle checked her phone. The campus security office had reclassified her tire vandalism as unrelated property damage. Officer Benton suggested it might have been random teenagers from town. Tyler strutted across the quad surrounded by teammates, pointing at Danielle and laughing. His father had arrived on campus, heading straight to the president's office. By late afternoon, her phone filled with messages. "Go back where you came from, crazy woman making shit up. Stop attacking our team." She texted Ava. "You know what really happened." The message showed as read, but no reply came. At sunset, Danielle sat alone in the darkened gym, suspended, injured, and publicly branded the problem. The space felt massive without the noise of practice. Her footsteps echoed as she walked to center court and lowered herself to sit cross-legged on the polished wood. This was the place she'd been dropped, the place where they thought they could break her. Now they'd taken even this away, her right to be here at all. She touched her shoulder gently, feeling the damage beneath her skin. The system had responded exactly as designed: swift and total elimination of the threat. They hadn't just disputed her story. They had rewritten her character, her history, her very presence on campus. The last light streamed through high windows, painting gold rectangles across the floor. Danielle sat perfectly still in one of these patches of fading light, suspended between what was true and what power had decided would be remembered. The same evening continued in the dark gym. Danielle remained seated on the lowest bleacher, watching the last rectangle of sunlight fade from the polished floor. The emptiness echoed around her. No whistles, no music, no voices. Just the hollow sound of the building settling. The heavy door creaked open. Danielle tensed, ready for another confrontation. "Been looking everywhere for you," Mia Torres said, her voice barely above a whisper. The resident assistant glanced nervously over her shoulder before stepping inside. Someone left this at the dorm desk for you. She held out a folded piece of paper, edges crisp as if it had been carefully pressed. Who was it? Danielle asked, taking the note. Didn't see. They just said it was urgent. Mia fidgeted with her lanyard. Listen, I'm sorry about everything. I should have done more when your stuff got messed with. Danielle nodded, but said nothing. Apologies felt hollow now. After Mia left, Danielle unfolded the paper. Inside was a phone number and a single sentence written in tight, controlled handwriting. I was on the squad before Sierra. I know what they did. Danielle stared at the words. Her heart pounded as she pulled out her phone. She walked outside the gym into the cool night air before dialing, not wanting her voice to echo in the empty building. 3 rings, then a cautious answer. Hello? Who is this? A woman's voice, tense with suspicion. My name is Danielle Brooks. Someone gave me this number. Meet me at Hal's Diner in 20 minutes. The voice cut her off. Off campus, on Maple Street. Come alone. The call ended. Danielle's injured shoulder throbbed as she walked to her repaired car. The university garage had replaced her tires, not out of kindness, she suspected, but to erase evidence. Hal's Diner glowed like a fluorescent island in the darkness of Maple Street. Bells jingled as Danielle pushed open the door. Only 3 tables were occupied this late. In the farthest booth, a woman with short brown hair sat facing the entrance, eyes tracking every movement. You're Danielle, she said when Danielle approached. Not a question. And you're Lila. Lila Grant. She gestured to the seat across from her. I was on the squad 2 years ago. Danielle slid into the booth. Your note said you know what they did. What they're still doing. Lila's fingers drummed on a manila folder beside her coffee cup. I filed assault charges against Logan Price my sophomore year. 3 weeks later, I was off the squad, out of my housing, and basically run off campus. They said you left voluntarily, Danielle said, remembering Noah's research. A bitter laugh escaped Lila's throat. That's what the official story says. Just like your story says you're unstable and dangerous. Did they hurt you too? Physically? Danielle asked. Not like you. They didn't drop me. Lila's eyes flicked to Danielle's sling. Logan cornered me at a house party. When I reported it, suddenly I was a liar and a slut. Sierra led the charge. She was just a sophomore then, but she knew which way the wind blew. Lila opened the folder and slid over several papers. Text messages from Sierra telling me to back off. An email from Dean Holloway suggesting I avoid formal escalation for everyone's sake. And this? She pulled out a small external hard drive. Every practice video from my last semester. Unedited. You kept all this? I knew someday someone else would need it. Lila's eyes hardened. I just never thought they'd be bold enough to physically hurt someone during a performance. The diner door jingled again. Noah hurried in, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Sorry I'm late. Campus security was checking IDs at the main entrance. He slid in next to Danielle. You must be Lila. I've been trying to track you down for weeks. I keep a low profile these days, Lila said. Noah connected the hard drive to his laptop. Files filled the screen. Practice videos, game footage, team meetings. This is incredible. How did you get these? I worked in the media office, made copies before I left. I knew they'd erase everything. Lila leaned forward. But that's not even the biggest thing. Look at this. She handed over a financial report that appeared to be part of a larger document. I found this when I was cleaning out old files. It's from the Grayson Family Foundation. Danielle and Noah scanned the page together. Listed under Student Welfare Initiatives was a dedicated fund of over $200,000 annually. What's this for? Danielle asked. It's their slush fund, Lila explained. Money to make problems go away. Medical bills, transfers, settlements, anything to keep the football program's reputation clean. Noah's eyes widened. This connects Tyler's family directly to the cover-ups. It's not just the university protecting athletes. It's targeted money. Look at this one, Lila said, pointing to a practice video file dated 2 days before Foundation Week. Noah clicked play. The footage showed the cheerleaders rehearsing the same pyramid from the halftime show. Sierra stood at the base position, looking over her shoulder repeatedly. Skip ahead to the last run-through, Lila instructed. The video jumped forward. There it was, Sierra glancing toward the tunnel entrance where Tyler stood watching. A barely perceptible nod passed between them. 20 seconds later, the formation shifted, with Sierra announcing Danielle would take the top position for the real show. Play it frame by frame, Danielle said, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah slowed the footage. Sierra's eyes meeting Tyler's. His subtle nod. Her smile. Evidence of conspiracy captured in pixels and preserved by someone who knew exactly what to look for. They planned it, Danielle breathed. They actually planned to drop me. They've been working together for years, Lila said. Tyler points, Sierra delivers. Logan and the others do the dirty work. Dean Holloway cleans up. But they've never been this bold before. Because I fought back, Danielle said, touching her injured shoulder. That first day on the field. Lila nodded. You did what I couldn't. You stood up to them. Near midnight, Danielle watched as Noah continued loading footage frame by frame. Each image revealed more of the conspiracy. Sierra's glance toward Tyler seconds before Danielle was dropped. The perfectly timed shift in position, the lack of surprise on certain faces when she fell. This changes everything, Noah said quietly. No, Danielle replied, eyes fixed on the screen. This confirms everything. We need to organize this, Noah said, spreading the documents across the diner table. Build the timeline so it's impossible to deny. Lila nodded. Start with the field grab. That's where Tyler first targeted Danielle. And where I fought back, Danielle added, her voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on her. The fluorescent lights of the diner buzzed overhead as they arranged the evidence in sequence. The waitress refilled their coffee cups without comment, seeming to understand the importance of their late-night work. First, Tyler's grab on the field, Noah said, placing the unedited video clip at the start of their timeline. Then the edited versions that appeared online within hours, cutting out his assault, but keeping your response. Danielle pointed to the timestamps. Look how fast they moved to control the story. These edited clips were uploaded less than 2 hours after it happened. They've had practice, Lila said bitterly. When Logan cornered me in the equipment room, there were suddenly 3 different stories about what happened before I even filed a complaint. They continued building their case, screenshots of the threatening messages, photos of the vandalized car, the medical reports with glaring discrepancies. This is the smoking gun, Noah said, tapping the halftime footage. Sierra looking at Tyler for confirmation before changing the formation. We can prove the fall was deliberate. Lila leaned forward. There's something else you should know about Sierra and Tyler. She took a deep breath. Brooke told me once, when she was really upset, that Sierra doesn't just follow Tyler's lead because she wants to. She's terrified of losing her position. What do you mean? Danielle asked. Tyler's family has connections to everyone who matters at this school. Athletic directors, administrators, local businesses that offer internships. Sierra's from a regular family, not rich like some of the others. Tyler promised her recommendations, connections for after graduation. If she crosses him, he can destroy her future with one phone call. Noah frowned. That's why she's so vicious. She's protecting herself. Doesn't excuse what she did, Danielle said firmly. No, Lila agreed. But it shows how deep the system goes. They create monsters by making people choose between their conscience and their future. Around 4 a.m., Noah pulled out his phone. I'm contacting Melissa Warren at the Tribune. She covers college sports and campus issues for the whole region. If they shut down the campus paper, she can still run the story. Smart, Danielle said. We need backup plans for everything. What about you? Lila asked Danielle. Once this breaks, they'll try to discredit you personally. Are you ready for that? Danielle didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled out her phone and called the one person she trusted most. Regina answered on the second ring, her voice instantly alert despite the hour. Danielle, what's wrong? I'm about to blow this whole thing open, Auntie, Danielle explained, quickly outlining what they'd discovered. But I need to know, am I doing this right? Regina was quiet for a moment. You know the difference between courage and revenge? Tell me. Courage seeks truth, no matter how painful. Revenge seeks harm, no matter the cost. Regina's voice grew stronger. Ask yourself what you want. Justice or punishment? Justice, Danielle said without hesitation. I want the system exposed. Then do it where they can't hide. Do it in the light. As Danielle ended the call, clarity washed over her. The championship game, she said to Noah and Lila. That's where this ends. Noah nodded slowly. The stadium will be packed. Every booster, every administrator, local media. And they can't control all of it, Lila finished. It's perfect. They spent the next hour mapping out their strategy. Noah would prepare multiple versions of the story. For the campus paper, social media, and Melissa's regional coverage. All would release simultaneously during the first quarter of the game. What about you? Noah asked Danielle. I'll be there in person, she said. They need to see me standing there, not hiding, not broken. As the first light of dawn filtered through the diner blinds, casting long shadows across their evidence, Danielle felt a strange calm settle over her. Outside, the campus was beginning to stir. Today's championship game would be the culmination of Foundation Week, a celebration of everything the university claimed to stand for. We should get some sleep, Noah suggested, gathering the documents. Lila nodded. I'll keep the originals safe. They might try to access your dorm once they realize what's happening. Back in her room, Danielle carefully taped her bruised shoulder, wincing at the pressure. She wasn't preparing to cheer. She wasn't even preparing to fight. She was preparing to stand, to be visible and unbroken in the same stadium where they had tried to silence her. As she finished with the tape, Danielle caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't a victim. She was a witness. And today, she would make sure everyone else saw the truth, too. Late morning sunlight blazed across the championship field. The bleachers heaved with people, students, alumni, families, and boosters packed tight against one another. Foundation Week had reached its peak, and the excitement was almost visible in the air. Cameras from local stations dotted the sidelines, more than usual for a college game. Word had spread. Something was happening beyond football today. Danielle Brooks walked through the public gate wearing jeans and a simple blue top, her taped shoulder hidden beneath a light jacket. No uniform, no pom-poms, just determination in every step. Noah followed a few paces behind, camera bag slung over his shoulder, looking both nervous and resolved. Lila Grant walked beside him, pale-faced but steady, back on the campus that had once forced her out. You sure about this? Noah asked quietly. Danielle nodded. More sure than I've been about anything. The crowd noise washed over them as they moved toward the field. A few heads turned, then more. Recognition spread like ripples in water. Isn't that the suspended cheerleader? Someone whispered. What's she doing here? Sierra spotted her first from the cheer section. Her perfect smile vanished, replaced by naked fear. She grabbed Brooke's arm and whispered something urgent. The other cheerleaders turned to stare, their routine forgotten. Across the field, Tyler Grayson was laughing with teammates when Logan nudged him. Tyler's head snapped around. For a second, genuine shock flashed across his face before he forced a dismissive smile. "Looks like Crazy came back for more," he said loudly enough for nearby players to hear. But his eyes kept drifting to Noah's camera bag. Danielle didn't hesitate. She didn't skulk around the edges or try to blend in. She walked directly toward the home sideline where Dean Holloway stood chatting with Coach Daniels and several well-dressed boosters. "Miss Brooks." Dean Holloway's smile was stiff as plaster. "This is hardly appropriate, given your suspension." Coach Daniels stepped forward, positioning himself like a wall. "You need to leave the field now." Danielle stood her ground. "I wanted to inform you personally that the unedited footage of my fall is being released right now, along with the altered medical reports." Her voice remained calm, steady. "And the previous complaints your office buried." The color drained from Dean Holloway's face. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation anymore," she said. "It's evidence." Coach Daniels leaned in, lowering his voice to a threatening rumble. "You have no idea what you're doing, girl." "Actually," Noah stepped forward, "she does. Multiple news outlets are receiving the files as we speak." Lila moved up beside Danielle. "Including my complaint from 2 years ago. The one you convinced me to withdraw, Dean Holloway." Several nearby parents turned to listen. A local reporter edged closer, pretending to check her phone, while her cameraman subtly pivoted toward the confrontation. "This is university property," Dean Holloway hissed. "I can have you removed for trespassing." "You can try," Noah said, nodding toward the press box. "But I think those reporters might find that even more interesting than what we've already sent them." A commotion erupted behind them. Tyler pushed through his teammates, his face twisted with rage. Logan and Ethan flanked him like bodyguards. "You think you can just walk in here?" Tyler spat, striding directly toward Danielle. "After all the lies you've been spreading?" Players and coaches shifted uncomfortably. The crowd noise dipped as more people noticed the confrontation. Phones rose from the front rows of the stands. "Back off, Tyler," Coach Daniels warned, suddenly aware of the attention. But Tyler was past listening. He reached Danielle in 3 quick strides and grabbed her arm, yanking her toward him with enough force to make her wince. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he hissed, his fingers digging into her skin. Time slowed. Danielle felt the familiar rush of calm focus, the same feeling she'd known in every match she'd ever fought. This was not rage. This was pure training. Her body moved with precision. She stepped into his pull instead of fighting it, rotating her hips and dropping her center of gravity. Her legs swept out in a perfect arc behind his ankles. Before anyone could react, Tyler was airborne, then flat on his back on the turf. Danielle followed him down, controlling his wrist in a textbook hold that pinned him without causing injury. Her movements were fluid, controlled, almost gentle in their efficiency. The stadium fell silent. Tyler struggled beneath her, face contorted with shock and humiliation. "Get off me!" "Are you done putting hands on people without permission?" Danielle asked calmly. Coach Daniels rushed forward. "Release him right now." "When he agrees to keep his hands to himself," Danielle replied, not breaking eye contact with Tyler. "Fine. Get off," Tyler spat. Danielle released him and stood in one smooth motion, backing away with her hands visible. She hadn't struck a single blow. She hadn't needed to. The silence lasted only seconds before the bleachers erupted. Not in boos, but in a wave of shocked murmurs and scattered applause. From all around the stadium, phones lifted like a forest of glass and metal, recording every moment. The damage control that had always protected Tyler was useless against hundreds of witnesses with digital proof. Dean Holloway stood frozen, watching his carefully maintained system crumble in real time. Security guards rushed onto the field, their radios crackling with urgent commands. They surrounded Danielle and Tyler, creating a human barrier between them. One guard reached for Danielle's arm, but stopped when Noah stepped forward with his camera rolling. She defended herself after he assaulted her, Noah said loudly. We have it all on video. Danielle stood perfectly still, hands relaxed at her sides. I only restrained him until he agreed to stop. I'm not the aggressor here. The moment hung suspended as more phones emerged from the crowd. Unlike the edited clips from before, these videos would show the complete truth. Tyler's grab, Danielle's controlled response, and her immediate release when the threat ended. Noah nodded to Lila, who tapped on her phone. Across campus and beyond, their carefully prepared evidence dropped simultaneously across multiple platforms. The stadium's giant screens, normally showing game highlights, suddenly flickered as tech-savvy students hijacked the feed to display the unedited footage. There was Tyler grabbing Danielle's skirt that first day. There was Sierra glancing toward Tyler before the accident. There was Dean Holloway instructing medical staff to downplay Danielle's injuries. In the bleachers, students who had been scrolling through their phones suddenly stood up, voices rising in outrage. They set her up! Someone shouted from the student section. Look at Sierra's messages! Called another. The cheerleaders, lined up for their pre-game performance, started looking at their phones as messages flooded in. 3 of them immediately stepped away from Sierra, who stood frozen in her uniform, face draining of color. Coach Daniels strode toward Danielle, pointing an accusatory finger. This is ridiculous. You can't just interrupt a championship game with these... With what, Coach? Facts? Noah interrupted, his camera still rolling. The regional press has everything now. So does the university board. Dean Holloway pushed forward, attempting damage control. Everyone needs to calm down. This is clearly a misunderstanding that... It wasn't a misunderstanding, Brooke Mercer suddenly shouted, breaking ranks from the cheer squad. Her voice cracked with emotion. Sierra told us Danielle needed to be taught a lesson after she embarrassed Tyler. She said we had to show her who really mattered here. All eyes turned to Sierra, who backed away, shaking her head. That's not... I didn't mean... Sierra's composure finally shattered. She dropped to her knees on the turf, mascara streaming down her face. They promised me protection. Tyler said his family would make sure I kept my captaincy and got a good recommendation if I helped them. What was I supposed to do? The confession echoed across the suddenly quiet field. Logan grabbed Tyler's shoulder. Shut her up, man. But it was too late. Sierra couldn't stop the flood of words now that they'd started. Dean Holloway told me it would be better for everyone if Danielle just left quietly. He said the university's reputation was more important than one student's complaint. Cameras swung toward the dean, who stood rigid with shock as his carefully constructed system of protection and denial collapsed in public view. Campus police pushed through the security guards, but this time they weren't dismissive. With hundreds of witnesses and mounting evidence, they had no choice but to address the situation properly. We need to separate everyone involved for questioning, the lead officer announced, gesturing to Tyler, Logan, and Ethan. This is ridiculous, Tyler shouted, backing away. My father is on the board. You can't. A regional news van had pulled up to the stadium entrance, reporter and cameraman rushing toward the commotion. The reporter thrust a microphone toward Coach Daniels. Coach, can you comment on the allegations that your program has systematically covered up player misconduct? Coach Daniels blanched. No comment at this time. The reporter turned to Dean Holloway. Dean, we've just received documentation showing that complaints against several athletes were destroyed after meetings with donors. Would you care to respond? Holloway's professional mask cracked. Those are confidential student matters that were illegally handled, Lila finished, stepping forward. Including mine from 2 years ago. The stands were in chaos now. The game announcer tried vainly to restore order, but players from both teams stood watching the scene unfold, some shaking their heads in disgust at their teammates. A sleek black SUV screeched to a halt near the field entrance. A woman in designer clothes burst out, face flushed with anger. Tyler's mother pushed past security, her heels digging into the turf as she stormed toward her son. "What is happening here?" she demanded. "This is outrageous. Do you know who we are?" She turned to Dean Holloway, expecting immediate deference. "Fix this. Now." But something had shifted. The dean looked from the cameras to the crowd to the evidence still flooding social media. The power dynamics that had protected Tyler for years were crumbling in real time. "Mrs. Grayson," he said slowly, "I don't think I can." Tyler's mother looked around at the sea of phones capturing every word, every reaction. Her expression shifted from rage to the dawning realization that her family's influence was evaporating in front of the entire school. Late afternoon sunlight slanted across the field, turning everything golden despite the chaos. The championship game had officially been canceled, an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through the campus. Players from both teams huddled in confused groups. Administrators rushed between buildings with phones pressed to their ears. And students, hundreds of them, pressed against the edges of the field, unwilling to leave despite security's half-hearted attempts to clear the area. Danielle stood near the center of it all, oddly calm amid the storm she had unleashed. Her shoulder throbbed, but the pain felt distant now. "They're calling an emergency board meeting," Noah said, scrolling through messages on his phone. His voice carried a mixture of awe and exhaustion. "This is bigger than anyone expected." Lila nodded beside them. It was always this big. They just kept it hidden. On the far side of the field, university staff hastily erected a podium. The interim president, a gray-haired woman who usually stayed behind the scenes, approached with several papers clutched in her hands. The crowd gradually quieted. "In light of today's deeply troubling events," her voice carried through hastily arranged speakers, "Langford State University announces the immediate removal of Coach James Daniels from all duties pending investigation." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Additionally, Dean Robert Holloway has been placed on administrative suspension. The university has already contacted an independent firm to conduct a thorough investigation into all allegations of misconduct within our athletic programs and any inappropriate donor influence on student disciplinary matters. Students burst into applause, drowning out her next words. When the noise subsided, she continued with visible discomfort. "The university deeply regrets the apparent failures in our system that may have allowed student concerns to go unaddressed. We are committed to complete transparency moving forward." Near the stadium exit, Danielle watched as campus police escorted Tyler, Logan, and Ethan toward separate vehicles. Tyler's face was twisted with rage. All pretense of charm vanished. He caught her eye briefly before an officer guided his head down into the back of a police car. "They're being taken for formal questioning," a campus security officer explained to the crowd. "Charges may include assault, harassment, intimidation, and tampering with evidence." In another direction, Sierra walked with her head down between two female officers. Her makeup was streaked with tears, but she moved without resistance. Danielle overheard an officer saying she had agreed to provide a full statement. Reporters swarmed around the perimeter, calling out questions. Several pushed microphones toward Danielle. "How does it feel to be the one who brought down the system? Were you afraid to stand up to them? Did you plan to use your fighting skills?" Noah stepped between them and Danielle. She'll make a statement when she's ready. Danielle surprised him by touching his shoulder and stepping forward. The cameras turned toward her, but she refused to perform the victorious hero they wanted. "This wasn't just me," she said firmly. Lila Grant had the courage to come forward years ago and was silenced. Ava Lynn risked her scholarship to tell the truth. And there are others, women who left quietly, women who were too afraid to speak. This story isn't about my fight skills or one bad quarterback. It's about a system that protected the wrong people. A reporter pushed closer. "But you were the one brave enough to—" "Brave doesn't mean fearless," Danielle interrupted. "It means doing what's right even when you're terrified. And I wasn't alone." As the crowd continued to swell with questions, Danielle spotted a familiar figure pushing through. Regina Brooks moved with purpose, her face a mixture of concern and fierce pride. When she reached Danielle, she wrapped her in a careful embrace, mindful of her injured shoulder. "You didn't call," Regina said quietly. "It happened so fast," Danielle replied. Regina looked around at the chaos. "I always told you that you were stronger than you knew. I remembered what you said. Restraint is strength." As evening approached, the interim president made her way through the crowd toward Danielle. She looked exhausted, but determined. "Ms. Brooks," she said formally, "the university would like to offer immediate reinstatement with a full apology. We've arranged for an outside specialist to review your medical care, and once the investigation begins, we'd like to invite you to serve on a new student protection panel to help reform our policies." Danielle looked at Noah, who nodded slightly. "I'll need that in writing," she said. "All of it. And I want guarantees for Ava and anyone else who spoke up." "Of course," the president agreed quickly. "We want to make this right." As darkness fell, the stadium slowly emptied. Staff began turning off the massive lights one by one. Students drifted away in groups, talking excitedly about what they'd witnessed. Reporters packed equipment, rushing to meet deadlines for evening news. Danielle asked Noah and Regina for a moment alone. They stepped back, giving her space as she walked to midfield, where the university logo stretched across the turf. She stood there, taking one deep breath in the sudden quiet. Her shoulder hurt. Her body was tired. But she was still here, still standing, when they had tried so hard to make her fall. Without ceremony or celebration, Danielle turned and walked forward across the field under her own power. Injured, vindicated, and unbowed. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.